Okay, folks, good morning. We'll give this a shot. We haven't done one of these in a long time. A little while. All right. So yesterday we did all of the base. What color is this? Raw sienna. Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and flip and do the a little bit less distracting on this side, and add the yellow. Start bringing it up. I think bringing them all up at the same time is gonna work better. The brown that I painted on the back side of this yesterday actually looks pretty good as a base color. Really the rusty beam type of thing. So I think that's the original one that I did way back when. So we're gonna go through these and add some of this. And I probably, you know what, I could probably use, what yellows do we have? We have cadmium. Cadmium, they're both cadmiums. Let's try using this. This is not going to be any waterier, more watery than the other one. I don't think. May need to use a brush that's a little bit smaller. Let's do that. Something like this. There we go, that's a little bit better. Get into that corner. I'm actually okay if it doesn't cover well. We're going to put several layers of paint on here anyways. About half this, about half the yellow. There's just something about using craft paint. You're not worried about wasting it. Not that we're being any more frugal with it, but just yeah, that's up a layer. So we're gonna do a few till this dries out completely, and then we'll come back and kick it up a level. Just a little bit of water just to kind of get it to flow right. It's got a little too much yellow in it. It's not a perfect science, doesn't need to be. This is painted in an apocalyptic environment. I like to think of this racing in an apocalyptic environment. You know, you think this isn't that many of them, only 20 of these barriers, so you have to paint them all. Like, it's plenty. it's plenty. And it's not like it's the entire border of the thing. They're just I was gonna say something like blast shields, but that's not right either. Now I fully plan on using the palm trees that I've put together for this as well. Where's let's get this handy. I got enough reach on it. I've forgotten how to do this, honestly. I've forgotten how to do this. Tells you how I don't really do this. Maybe you just needed to wait a little bit. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, just so I can a little closer to see the comments if there are any. I don't know. Depends how many you retirees come on here. Everybody else is busy working. I know several people that are retired, and at least we're led to believe that older people wake up early and go to bed early. I mean, all the older people I know are the opposite. They're a bunch of night owls. And actually stayed up painting yesterday later than any other day I have in a long time. It was up till about, I think, 9:30 or something like that. I don't do well in the evenings. I'm worn out by the time that gets around. I need to get caffeine to fire me up, and I don't need to have caffeine late in the evening because I'll go to bed, but I'll wake up every couple hours or whatever, having exhausted dreams and shit like that. Not restful sleep. But yeah, I like to think of this as an apocalyptic type of thing. Maybe, if orcs, if those space orcs were humans, or it's something like Borderlands, or maybe not full on Mad Max, but something like that. Things that aren't in good shape. Something like The Walking Dead, but no zombies. Oh, there is a version of this you can play with zombies, but that sounds like painting a lot of stuff just to run them over. I think that's what it is. You got to run them over or something like that. They're like making onto the field of battlers. I read into it a little bit. Okay. Yeah, these things are definitely front heavy, unfortunately. I don't know if I'm going to be able to fix that. All the weights on one side plus this is over. It's maybe just be something as simple as a piece of stickum on this side to keep it aligned a little bit better. That sort of thing. Okay, we got that on. All right, cool. Yeah, just a little bit of water to keep this lubricated, even though it thins out the paint a little bit. This paint's not really thick. I put down multiple layers anyways. That's the way I paint, so the paint being thin probably doesn't affect me as much as it would other people, but the black seems to cover really well no matter what. Even though it's craft paint, even though it's cheap paint. Yeah, pretty happy with this brush size for this. And I'm also painting with my contacts out, so it's more enjoyable. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Pretty happy with that. I don't necessarily always use brown to start off a yellow color with. Sometimes I use black. Well, it doesn't look good. Well, it depends what look you're going for. Some, if you want to look mildewy, I still have to cover it in just as many coats. I don't feel like covering it in brown saves you that many coats anyways. It's just warmer. It's less green. It just depends what you want the end result to be. And somebody might be like, oh, well, why don't you just take this stuff off? Just take this off and airbrush it. That would just take a lot longer. It would take me a lot longer. And it might look too even. I was looking through some of the 2025 Hot Wheels sets. Not sets, but the whatever had come out this last year. It's funny how some things get discontinued, some things get carried on in different colors of paint. The ones I got were probably 5 or 6 years ago, and some of the same models that I got 5 or 6 years ago were still in rotation, and some aren't. I'm sure they'll probably come back or what have you, but I remember even as a kid, like having toys like that. I wanted things to be somewhat in scale with each other. Like you get a lot of these like die-cast things that are almost like the same mentality that Lindbergh models used to do. Some people call it box scale. I've heard some people call it box scale, like they have a box and try to make the model as big enough to fit in a box, and everything's the same box. Everything's the same box. So you might have something like Lindbergh that makes like planes and ships and stuff like that, and the planes will be at some odd scale, and the ships will be some odd scale also, and they're not in scale with each other. the planes and ships even worse when it's like the ships aren't in scale with each other, even if they're the same class. So you'll have something like, USS New Jersey battleship, and it'll be 572nd scale, which is an odd number. And then might make the Missouri, which is the same ship and a same class ship, basically identical, and they won't be in the same scale of each other. Anyways, the diecast do things like that. They'll do like nominally all the diecast are usually like 1/64th. I don't know why they picked that scale, but they did 1/64th, and they'll have something like it doesn't matter whether it's an old hot rod or a Lamborghini or Mini Cooper. They're all nominally about 1/64th scale. Now some of these Mini Coopers, I can tell you already, they're larger. They might be like 1/60th or something like that. And then they'll get some oddball thing like a Vespa, right? I don't know why they want to put a Vespa, but they put a Vespa in, and it's definitely like 1/35th scale, like really, really big, no rider. Like, I wouldn't have wanted that as a kid. I'd be like, what the hell's this doing here? I wouldn't be able to fall for that, Or like, a helicopter that's obviously much, much smaller. Now, my favorite diecast company, and I don't know how long they've been out of business, they might have been out of business since the 1980s, was this one Japanese company called Tommy. It's spelled Tommy with one M. It might be actually Tomy. I don't know if they're around anymore. What was unique about them, even in the late 70s, I had mine in the late 70s. I remember when I was in Huntsville, Alabama, you go to Kmart and stuff like that, they would carry them. Tommy Pocket something. I want to say their logo had a little diecast car in there, and it had like a stitched blue jean pocket or something like that. Pocket cars or something like that. What was cool about them is they usually had the doors that opened. Which, hey, that's pretty high technology when you're like freaking 7 years old, right? You got these doors will open on this car. And I don't know when they went out of business. They're not around anymore. But what was unique about them, other than the doors opening, and they didn't cost really any more than the Hot Wheels and stuff like that. The problem with the Hot Wheels is they have usually these outlandish tires, where the Tommy tires were almost like realistic tires. I think when you get down to it, a lot of these cars, that even with the realistic tires that they have, they're all like the same hubcap over and over and over repeated. You start looking at stuff like that kind of with a fine-tooth comb. Man, this is looking really good. Unfortunately, we got to do a shitload of them, but it's either get up and paint or play some War Thunder. So today we decided to paint. You guys did a good job of motivating me last night. I'm going to keep the ball rolling. So the tires on these Tomies, I'll call them Tomies, is probably what it is. And more realistic size as opposed to, these big racing slicks. Kind of like this car. This is a Hot Wheels, and it's a 1930s car, and this would be perfect for, something in a World War II environment, maybe wrecked or something like that. But it's got these racing slicks, almost like, Formula One cars. And they do make aftermarket ones. Actually, this must be a redo, because look, this is Hot Wheels Mattel 1981 Malaysia 1935 Cadillac. It's a 1935 Cadillac, and this mold apparently was made in 1981, and it's got pretty darn good inside detail. I mean, a lot of these things, you discount them as just being toys, but if you repaint them, they're pretty darn decent. And sometimes they had a hood that opened up on them, which I guess is kind of cool. But with the Tomies, they had the scale on every one of them underneath. And Matchbox used to do that as well. And they're nominally 1/64th, but sometimes you'll have an odd, you'll have like maybe a garbage truck that's in 1/78th, or a bus that's in, 1/96th or something like that. They got to keep the models somewhat of the right size so that they fit in the packaging, and I guess the resources that go into making them are equivalent. You don't want to like sell a Greyhound type bus that's cost $1 and it's 3 times bigger than a car. It's going to cost a lot more materials to make that than it would the car. Yeah, sometimes this craft paint just covers pretty darn decent. I don't want it to cover completely or be flat. I want it to look like it's faded anyway. So this is doing the job right now. Got any more of this coffee left? But as soon as you start looking for one thing on the internet, on YouTube especially, you get bombarded by other kind of stuff that's similar to that, but it's not what you're looking for. So lately, I've been bombarded by people that have these, and I haven't watched any of the videos, but I look at the thumbnails. What I would call an excruciatingly amount of collectible, things like people that collect die-cast cars, and they don't collect 100 of them. They've got 100,000 of them, and I'm like, when you get to 1,000, I think you've had too many. We're gonna put all that stuff, and they're in cards. At least take them out. Like that's what I did on Saturday. I had some of these, and I'm like, I got to get these off the cards, man. They're just taking up too much space. And they're gonna get repainted, so I don't care that they're. It's not like they don't need to bang into each other. I mean, I'm not forcefully banging into them, but you know. That's one thing I was looking at the last couple days when I started to try to catch up and watch some of the 3D bot maker stuff, some of his videos. A lot of his cars take a tumble. They're certainly crashing into each other. Eventually they'll have chips. I think in one video, the guy even commented, he said, "Is that a chip of paint going through there? Going through midair in the slow motion cam?" I don't have the patience to do that kind of editing. The end result is awesome, but man, for every second of enjoyment of video, you're spending, well, it would take me 30 minutes. Maybe not that much, maybe not that extreme, but 15 minutes for every second or something like that. Just the editing. But that's not what I do for a living. I don't have the patience for that kind of stuff. I got the patience for this. I don't care how long this takes. By the time we're done with it, it's going to look awesome. And I won't have to do it again. Yeah, this is the right size brush for sure. And it's one of those ones from Hobby Lobby I was talking about. Royal and Langnickel. Langnickel, yeah, whatever that is. Go ahead and pour this in here. A little bit of coffee flavored soda. Never hurt anybody. All right. So the plan is to do a refresh on learning how to play this, which we haven't played in 6 or 7 years, and how easily you forget things. How easily you forget things. But one thing I don't like about this game is, and that's really kind of our own fault, is every time we played, we spent the first 30 minutes or so, maybe less than 30 minutes, but anyways, we spent some amount of time building the cars. And the problem with building the cars is that there's a natural desire to build kind of like a safe bet of a thing, a non-risk taking. Like you want some stuff that you're comfortable with, right? You don't want to build something that's outlandish and you never get into use. Like maybe something that has a bunch of thrown weapons, right? And then you get in a situation in a race where you're never really close to anybody and you're just kind of a target and you don't get to dish out any damage. So you don't create these one-sided kind of contraptions. So there's this natural, and this happened many years ago when we were doing BattleTech. We're playing the original BattleTech. We say, hey, we're going to play, everybody gets 200 tons or whatever. You got to do 4 mechs, or maybe they didn't even tell you how many mechs you wanted to do. Just try how many mechs you want with 200 tons. It's up to you whether you want to do 4 50-ton mechs or 2 100s or whatever. 5 20s. That should be 10. Anyhow, so there was this natural reaction. Maybe we played with 100 tons. That's what it was. There was this natural reaction, at least for me, to build 2 50-ton mechs. Or a 45 and a 55 or something like that. So I remember when we played BattleTech, there was see if I can remember what the names of them are. A Centurion and an Enforcer, I think is what it is, that I always like to build. So they had, stuff that they weren't super powerful, but they weren't wimps. They weren't slow. They had stuff that could encounter things at different. So it was very resistant. And then you do okay with them. And it's just very resistant to come up with something new. Because it's like, it's like when you go to eat at there's a couple restaurants I've encountered, well, back when restaurants were worth eating at, that were so good that it was too risky to try something new. Because when you tried something new at the restaurant, there's a plate that you knew was awesome that you weren't going to be eating that time. So, it's like, what do you want to eat? I said, well, I want to make sure that I don't pick something that sucks compared to my favorite dish here. So I'll just order my favorite dish. So there's like this resistance of, of taking risks or something like that. So I don't really want to get into this situation where we're playing this and a fourth of your playtime, or maybe a fifth of your playtime, is consumed by putting together these cars that at the end of the day, you're going to make them almost the same as the last time you ran them if you were happy with the results. So I fully plan on making unbalanced cars. Not necessarily unbalanced cars, but cars with a theme. Like maybe one of them will, ram, or one of them will do throw things. And then not be so worried necessarily about the point value of them, because any points system is broken at some level or another. Like maybe it'll work okay, but like with your group, like you're not really good at using something about it. So you don't really see that much of a value in some of the way that the vehicles are constructed by using, a ram or an exploding ram or something like that, or a grabber or something like that. So I fully expect to be building cars that have a certain theme. In other words, not making them all a bunch of cars with like a single heavy machine gun on the front and one on the back. That kind of stuff. I mean, there's going to be some commonality. Some type of things will be more common than others, but and then just have some kind of a system where you don't get to choose what car you play. Because I think at least our game group really enjoys doing that, like having to think outside the box. Because if you don't do stuff like that, there's some things in the game you're never going to use. Because they cost too much, or you don't want to drive a heavy truck because it's too slow, or something like that. Like tough. That's what you drew. You're going to be playing a heavy truck. Maybe I don't want to play a buggy. I never played a buggy because on paper it looks like it would suck, and then I'm forced to play it one time, and this is pretty cool. Should have been playing this all along, kind of thing. No, we're working our way through them. And I really do like this material. Really, the only gripe I have about this is they're a little front heavy. I don't know how I'm going to solve that, if I'm even going to be able to. Maybe gluing a penny to the bottom would certainly do it, but then it's not flush. Yeah, we'll figure out we'll figure something out, or not. We won't buy any more like these because I have no plans on buying any more of these. This is kind of a quick fix. One of the vendors of the show many years ago, well, they don't come to the show anymore, but they used to carry stuff they were some of the first people I ever saw that carry this Gasland stuff. And I thought they were the ones that made it, but now that I think about it, It's actually some other company. They just happen to carry their things. And I picked up these and then the gates, which are pretty cool, but man, they're really like, I've seen some other people's creative ideas. Like, man, it would have been pretty cool to make my own gates, but sometimes you got to get some stuff that's already pre-made. Kind of get your head in the right place. You know, so the sizing of it and everything. You know, if you go and try to make your own gates for the first time, you're like, man, how wide should they be? And how tall should they be? And all that. Now that you got a set, you can like, okay, well, let me make one gate that's different or with junk or something like that. It's not necessarily the work of doing any of this stuff, but it's just not getting discouraged. Not having these ideas in your head where you're like, man, am I doing this right? Am I going down the right path? Well, we should be able to finish all these before I have to stop. And that's coming up pretty soon, unfortunately. Hey, but we got a morning session in. We hadn't had one of these in a while. On a work day. I think this is a little too light. Let's see. Well, it looks good as this next level up. So yeah, that's too light. I actually enjoy doing this a lot. At this point, the first color, I'm like, anybody can paint the first color. Let's darken this up a little bit. Three more? This one and three more? Yeah, that'd be good. That's what I don't like about doing this. As time flies, I'm like, oh man, I got lots of time. Like it's been almost an hour since I started. Yeah, 46 minutes. It's a good hobby for somebody who's, serving a life sentence. Get locked up, leaving me here with my paints. Of course, you wouldn't be able to get a lot done because, the next thing you know, you get on a roll, and then your cellmate wants to spoon or something like that, so you like not be able to finish what you're doing. Spooning cellmate, or worse. But we're really just going to just do a real simple session tonight. Not going to be filmed or anything. Just take, maybe each of us a car, and then like one guy has a pickup truck, one guy has a van, and just simple terrain layout, and just see what happens. Get the core of the mechanics again, like geared into you. And then next time we'll do something a little bit more complicated. I said maybe I'll have some actual cars. No, probably not that time. Probably the time after that. Probably time after that. And it's one of those games I remember quite fondly. I feel like I played it a lot way back when. Was this game that I got? It was with my first computer, so it was been 1999. It was already an old game at that point. Not old game, but it had been out for like 2 or 3 years. And it was called Interstate 76. And it came free with my racing wheel. I bought a racing wheel. I've always liked driving games. I just don't like I don't haven't always liked that you're stuck on this course. You can't go outside the confines of this course one iota. It's a little too restrictive, right? So I do like free form things, or hey, you can stay on the course and you'll be faster, but you can go other places. And anyway, so this racing wheel ended up coming with that Interstate 76, which I think actually the one it came with was a sequel to it. I didn't have the original game. I had like a sequel to it. Anyhow, but it's a fun little game. You could I think you could build cars or whatever. I looked at the graphics the other day and I go, oh, that just won't do these days. I don't have to have the best graphics, but I don't like playing games that have graphics that make me wonder if I put my contacts in or not. They're a little too blurry. You gotta squint your brain to see what's going on. That's not really a fan of that. Okay, so these are all up to this level. So now, if I was going to go up one more level, I would take the same mix, which is about 50-50, and add more of this. And a little bit of water to keep it smooth. And we want to grab the ones that we did at the beginning so that they're drier. Same thing, we're just going to and it's okay if you see the brush strokes. I think that's the whole idea. These are probably painted by hand, probably painted by convicts. I don't know, what's the storyline of this world? They're painted by people against their will. So the one thing about craft paint that I was reading is there's a couple materials that make up paint, but by and large you have the pigment, the word that I always forget, and the carrier. And the pigment is the expensive part. And the way it was explained to me, that looks really good. That looks really, really good. I gotta be careful to look too neat. And the way it was explained to me is the pigment, the carrier is really, really flat, like not shiny. And so craft paint, because they're trying to do them on the cheap end, have less pigment than like regular paint, like a Vallejo or something like that. So by and large, they tend to look flatter than Vallejo. Now you can add a flat coating at the end of it, a matte finish, that'll solve that. But the nice thing is, along the way of painting it, you kind of get a better idea of how something's going to look with the craft paint compared to better quality paints, because it's already naturally looking flat, like you're going to do the finish on it. And yeah, all the terrain that I do, I use craft paint. I don't seal it. It's another step. If I got to repaint it, I got to repaint it. I've never had to, but I use craft paint for the terrain because, man, it's looking really good. Really happy with the results of it. It's looking how I wanted it to look like. Let's put it like that. That's how I like to say it, because I'll see stuff on the internet. I'm like, I don't like how that turned out, but it doesn't matter if I like it. Did the person that created it like it? Because that's who you got to be happy. So they'll keep creating things. Yes, this is what happens. I'm like, first I'm like, I don't want to paint. And the next thing you know, you're on a tear. Like, man, I don't want to stop. This is really happy with the results. Now, because I love doing like hand painted lettering and stuff on things. I suspect all these vehicles are probably going to have the name of the vehicle written on the vehicle. Somewhere. I don't mean on the underside. I go and I'd left that site many years ago. There was just too much stuff that was being posted, and I wasn't really into it anymore. I left the site. And one of the things that always surprised me is these people that make these incredible car builds, and then they'll do stuff like, here's my car build of my, combat bus. And I haven't named it yet. They've built it out completely, but they don't have a name. And I'm the opposite. I have a name for something, I build towards the name. Like, I'm going to name this such and such. All right, now what would a such and such look like? But I think it's fun to come up with names of things. Other people may not enjoy that, So, you got one more in us? Nah, we'll stop. We'll stop here. Let's make sure this thing's rinsed out. Well, this brush is stellar. Working really well for us. Yeah, so we got all these done to this level, and these up with this coating on it. And we'll finish the rest of these up to this, and then we'll kick it up a level, and then probably one more after that, and then we're probably done. Then we'll do like drippings and stuff over the yellow and stuff like that. But looking pretty good. Happy with the results so far. Just to drive by a hello for the moment. Yeah, man. You're just a biscuit on your biscuit break. Yeah, I decided to come on tonight, You guys motivated me to get back on this. And I'm planning on using this. By the way, the brown looks pretty good as the base color, for rust. Then we're going to start adding stuff like, dry brush things like this on. Lightly a little bit. But, yeah, some iron things. I'm probably going to have to repaint this. See, this was a little too... Well, we'll see when we bring all these up the same. It's just a matter of making them look like that. So far, so good. Yeah, this is another color you use. Whatever color it is. Burnt sienna. That's funny, because this one's also... Oh, this is raw sienna.